Hello? Okay, well, here's one of my 3 pictures I've entered to the Amiga Art Contest this year. 2 of my pictures this year. Oh hi, that's using the Bezier curve. Don't use that very often. Actually have no idea how it works in PPaint. 2 of my entries from this year were started as prompts for one of the October art prompt lists. Bezier curve again on the hat. There's actually a really good way of it working. It's kind of neat. Now you'll see on this picture, and the other ones, that really I don't have any idea what I'm doing when I start. Haven't even... I mean, this is the closest to a sketchy layer. But if I was using Photoshop or something, I'd be doing in green or blue a sort of rough version of the outline. But in PPaint or DPaint, the sketch layer becomes the actual finished layers because, yeah, you can't really do something behind everything else. This is me jiggling everything around to try and get the anatomy even slightly logical. I think the prompt from the prompt list was simply which is very vague. Now the broom. Oh, there's a bit of a gap here. Oh, I clearly got bored for a second. Sorry for these little gaps where I clearly walked off. I think each of these pictures, well, the 2 of the pictures took about 8 hours. This is one of those. This was actually a picture I started. The second one I started it halfway through. The one I called Haunted. Feet. One thing it's worth doing, because there is not an infinite undo buffer, and I don't think it saves the undo history with the files either. Just save a million variations of the same file. It's what I do anyway. Once again, I'm using the same OCS extra half bright palette that I used for my games. I had to make a few modifications for the Creeping Me Out Hex Night to allow for things like parallax and various other copper things that sort of knocks a few of the colours out. But otherwise, it's the same palette. Highlights and shadows and a little bit of dithering. You can't see it in this video because it hadn't occurred to me to film the tablet in the later videos. I film my tablet hands, and the keyboard hand, so you can see me using the shortcuts, and you can see how I'm using the Wacom, or Wacom if you want to call it that. I think they're called Wacom. Now, this is always one of the most time-consuming parts. You saw me do a little bit of anti-aliasing there. I think in terms of line smoothing, that's one of the strongest parts of this picture when it's finished. There are a few funny experimental bits where I tried doing different things, but by and large, it's just a slow squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. Now in PPaint, the standard line drawing tool, I don't know what you call it, sort of pencil tool, does not support tablet pressure. You have to use the dotty line tool for that, which is actually a bit rubbish. But I've got used to it now. I don't really need pressure in these. If you want to know anything about my setup, this is running on an Amiga 1200 with an ACA, what's it called? 1230N or something? I can't remember. I did actually do a video about it and put it on YouTube. It's running at 40 megahertz. With an 030, kind of unnecessary. You could do this particular piece on an unexpanded A600 or something if you wanted. Would not make the blindest bit of difference, but in terms of the other stuff, it's good to have the extra performance. In terms of the capture setup I'm using an Elgato HD60S Plus. And at some point I really do need to do a video about how to get that to work as nicely with the Amiga, because I found all sorts of strange little tricks with that. And that's plugged into an open source scanline converter. I've done that thing on this piece where it's just like the light is coming from somewhere up. It's nice to draw just a generic pinup for a change, not just some sort of bizarre abstract scene or something just full of tons of little details. It's really nice to have the Amiga Art Contest to come back to and just do some nice Amiga doodling, because obviously I do draw an absolute ton, but there's no real reason for me to use the Amiga normally, but it is enjoyable. It's kind of soothing. It forces you to do things which would be quicker if you did them with other methods. There, that's interesting. My what's it called? The gradients, the ramps aren't entirely linear. You'll see this from all my pictures. Occasionally I'll have to dither in a slightly greener tone but I think it works well. That's one of the things I like about Extra Half Bright actually, is it usually makes some of your colours slightly whack, unless you're using it on an AGA machine, and those slightly strange colours have actually led to a lot of interesting variation in Creeping Me Out, the game. No, I'm going to have to stop calling it that. I should probably just call it Hex Night. That would solve a lot of problems, considering that I've got at least 2 Creeping Me Out games in progress. This is one of the most well-rendered broomsticks by the end of it. I'm most proud of the broomstick. Overwhelming majority of this picture drawn at 1 pixel brush size. Obviously, kinda time consuming, but fun. Traditionally I use coloured pencil crayons and biro, so it's really not that different to that. It's actually less annoying than coloured pencil crayons. Jeez, they take forever. It's kind of difficult to talk about the process. A lot of the time it's semi-automatic, like not a huge amount of thought goes into it, not consciously anyway, it just sort of happens. I think that just comes with practice. It doesn't always mean that you're going to get a good picture at the end, it just means I don't actually think much once I'm in full flow. This has been another testing year, hasn't it? I hope everyone's doing well. In regards to the, not just even the Amiga scene, the retro scene in general, it seems to have been, that was a funny failed experiment. Can't even remember what I was trying to do. I was making the Amiga Boing Ball pattern, and what was I going to do with that pattern? I was either going to try and make the moon with the pattern or have a background with the pattern. In the end I decided against both of them because they look stupid. There's another bit later on where I'm just like, I'm going to continue to add detail, and I was just like, no, I don't need more. Yeah, that's that green, that greeny flesh is interesting. It works well in this picture because the blue, and to be honest, when you're painting you add a surprising amount of green to in skin tones anyway, but it's not like something you'd probably choose to put in your palette if the limitations hadn't stopped the ramp from being perfect. Yep, the amount of dithering I have to put on this by the end. You'll notice I very rarely use anything other than a 1-1 dither pattern. I don't really like most dither patterns. I can't really explain why. They'd be easy enough to use. Oh, another thing I didn't mention, I actually painted most of this in an overlay window, what's it called, using shader glass, which lets me see what it would look like on a CRT. And that, using that and being able to reference both windows, you get a very good idea of how the dithering would probably look. Dithering very, very easily gives you much smoother gradients, but can make things look ugly as heck if you're not careful. Look, that was a quick flash there. Yep, go back and pause if you like. Where I put the shader glass screen up. One shiny witch. Right, I'm just going to stop recording for a second. Wait, what? It's not live, I don't need to say that, but I am going to stop recording for a second because I've got to go for a COVID booster. Yay! Now feet. Feet are a bit of a pain. At least I didn't Rob Liefeld them. What else? Sorry, I'm just a bit out of breath. One thing I haven't really done is any anti-aliasing outside the various shapes. That'll come near the end. How far through are we? Well, we're about at the halfway mark. Yeah, that's the sort of thing I'm going to have to do around the entire thing. Around the entire picture. Don't want any jaggies. That's the sort of area that I'll be very indecisive about, I suspect. Oh well. I wonder how visible this stuff will be. There's one problem I find with the open source scanline converter and a proper sort of like pure pixels output. You get a slightly wrong idea of where the blacks are going to be, in my experience anyway. So I've done some stuff which to other people is clearly far too dark, but I think I've got a handle on it now. The amount of times you'll just go over the same piece again and again thinking, I could probably improve that. Dum-de-dum. That's another aborted idea. It's like, nah, preferred it without. Now, I do add some detail to the water, but only a little. That's another example of starting with a slightly bigger brush and then decreasing it. Do more detailed bits. Now for videos like this in the future, I don't know whether I should keep my voice or just have some music with subtitles even. I've really no idea. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any preferences. I found this from the shipwreck levels in Hex Night. The sea is difficult. not easy. Okay, what am I... Oh, at some point I anti-aliased around some of the lines of the moon. If you look at... Ah, yeah, Dotty line tool. Very useful. I have no idea what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm using a mask to stop me from drawing on colours I don't want to. If you look at the moon, I have not anti-aliased the diagonal bits because they don't need smoothing. If you put a anti-alias line all the way around a circle, it looks spongy and actually makes it look less round. At some point I'm gonna have to do that foot, aren't I? You can't just leave the foot forever. There really is no special technique or anything I can talk about here other than keep messing around with it until it feels right, looks right. Obviously sometimes it's worth looking at references, but well, a lot of the time it's worth looking at references. I actually had to look at pictures. I generally draw without them, and then afterwards, to make sure I'm not going crazy, I check to make sure that the pose is actually possible after the fact. But not everyone works like that. It's always a good idea to use references. I always have to use references if I'm drawing male anatomy, particularly. Toes. It's kind of crazy. Okay, 3/4 of the way through. Actually meant to get all 3 of these videos ready for when the Amiga Art Contest happens, but that's clearly not going to happen now. I left it too late. I also made some hilarious mistakes on the biggest of the pictures. I exported it and I was just like, why is this one taking hours and hours and hours to export? Because you were reading the time wrong. Because it wasn't 20 minutes long, it was 20 hours long. So yeah, I had a 20-hour version of my video, which was basically just real time with gaps where nothing really was happening as well. So that was not helpful. I should have done this all ages ago, but obviously I've been working on other things. At this point it does make me wonder what's the remaining minutes. It doesn't look that right. Yep. I looked at it and was just like, that's got jaggedy edges. Say no to jaggedy edges. I mean, jaggedy edges are good if you want jaggedy edges. It's entirely a stylistic choice. It's not better or worse one way or another, I don't think. It's just... One thing it'll be easier to tell you about in one of the other videos, but PPaint does seem to have a problem with the 1 pixel size brush. But there are various easy workarounds. Sometimes it just won't do it anyway. It just seems mad. The higher the resolution canvas you're using, the less it seems to happen. Don't know why. That might be a coincidence. There's another example of it's a perfect diagonal line, doesn't need anti-aliasing. You end up with a sort of halo of sneh if you do that. Sometimes. Depends on which colours it's up against. Broom smoothing. If you stuck it out for this long, respect. I hope this is interesting to someone anyway. It's probably from this point onwards me attempting things and then deciding against using them. Most likely. Ah, yes. The cloudy backdrop. Again. Needless detail. When it's just a pin-up, it doesn't need to be some fancy-ass composition. That didn't add anything. But it's interesting to see from a process point of view. Considering I'm going to give up on this and then remove it all. It's a tad on a pointless style. I probably should have removed it from the video. Just distracts from the foreground. Doesn't need to be there. Very weird. Okay, yep. Signing it. In a needlessly fiddly way. And then changing my mind about what colour it's going to be. Oh, of course. Apparently I decided that could do with some extra shading. Yeah, it's funny when you're watching it from the beginning, you can't remember what it looks like when it gets to the end. This is... fun times. Now, there's only 30 seconds left, so thanks for watching this one. And thanks to Vicky and Doug. Almost called him Mark again. For the contest. It's just really fun to do Amiga art in general. And looking forward to seeing other people's. By the time I record the next 2 videos, I will have seen everyone's, so congrats, everyone. I know what... yeah. It's going to be fun.